The Greeks settled eastern Sicily in the 8th century BC and founded Zancle, which is now Messina, Naxos, Leontinoi, and Catania. Thucydides claimed the early Greek colonies were formed by families returning from the Trojan War. In the southern eastern corner of Sicily, the Corinthians formed Syracuse around 734 BC and nearby Megara, Iblea. To the west of Sicily, the Cretans and the Rhodians formed Gela in 689 BC. This ongoing arrival of Greeks forced back the Phoenicians to retreat to the northwest of the island to Motia, Solontum, Panormus, which is Palermo. Carthage noticed this and began to support the threatened Phoenician settlements. Other than the Greeks and the Phoenicians, Sicily was populated by the Sicani, the Siculi, the Elami, as well as the Carthaginians. The Greeks proved a strong catalyst for trade and commercial development across the island. To learn more about La Bella Sicilia, consider subscribing. Greek settlement went as far as Enna by 500 BC. Even the Phoenician capital of Motia, now Motia, to the west of Sicily, leaves us with strong evidence of a Greek influence. The early settlements of Messina, Naxos, Catania and Syracuse were all coastal ports who thrived as a result of their use on the major trade routes. Waves upon waves of Greek immigration pushed back the Siculi and the Sicani, and this triggered frequent clashes over territory as well as popular uprisings. In 570 BC, Phalaris became tyrant of Agrigento. He conquered eastern Sicily, including Zancle, Messina, Naxos and Leontini, but always failed to take Syracuse. Gelon eventually did enter Syracuse without a struggle around 485 BC and based his court there. His brother Hiero went on to control Gela. The Greeks finally controlled the east of Sicily. The Siculi and the Sicani became a significant threat and battle ensued. Syracuse was a powerful city with troops and warships, and during his short reign, Gelon was the most powerful and wealthy ruler in the Greek world. Terillus of Himera, which is near Palermo, and Anaxilas allied with Carthage, while Gelon and Teron gathered forces for the decisive battle at Himera in 480 BC. Hamilcar was killed and his Carthaginian troops were routed or enslaved, his ships burnt and sold. In 476 BC, Gelon was succeeded by Hiero, who immediately conquered Catania and Naxos. He exiled the beaten citizens of these settlements to Leontini and recreated Catania as Aetna. In 474 BC, Hiero's fleet defeated the Etruscan navy near Cumae. The tyrants Thrasybulus in Syracuse and Thrasydias in Agrigento triggered violent revolts. Deinomenes survived in Aetna, Catania, until a Siculi Syracusan axis forced the population to flee the city. Messina also broke free from the tyrannical family of Anaxilas. In 452, Ducetius led a Siculan uprising from Mineo and destroyed Inessa, Etna and Morgantina. Around 450 BC, Dicetius was defeated by the Syracusans and exiled to Corinth. The Peloponnesian War spread to the Greek colony in Sicily. In 427 BC, the Siculi joined the war between Leontini and Syracuse. Catania, Naxos and Camarina sided with Leontini, while Himera and Gela joined Syracuse. In 424 BC, a peace treaty was granted by the Syracusan Hermocrates as he turned his focus to the recently arriving Athenian troops, who he was keen to leave Sicily. In 422 BC, trouble in Leontini finally gave Syracuse the excuse to completely flatten it. Selinunte and Syracuse declared war on Segesta, who had just switched sides from Carthage to Athens in 416 BC. In 415 BC, Athens sent Alcibiades with a fleet of 250 ships and 25,000 men to support Segesta, but this ultimately ended in disaster. Later Greek campaigns in 414 BC and 413 BC, led by Demosthenes, again failed to dislodge Syracuse. In 413 BC, the surviving Athenian troops were captured and died as slaves. Having won, Syracuse, led by Diocles of Syracuse, adopted reforms based on the rules of the Athenians. Hermocrates left on a campaign to help Sparta. Selinunte attacked Segesta in 410 BC, but were beaten back by Carthaginian mercenaries. Hannibal Mago arrived in Sicily and destroyed Selinunte and massacred its people. He met the Syracusan army at Himera, led by Diocles. The Syracusans and Imarese both retreated after heavy losses. Hannibal returned to Carthage. Hermocrates had returned from the Aegean with 5 ships and a small force. He attacked the Carthaginian colonies and settled in Selinunte. Syracuse was falling apart. Diocles was exiled and Hermocrates was killed. In 406 BC, a large Carthaginian force defeated and looted Acragas. Dionysius rose to power in Syracuse and resisted a Carthaginian siege for 7 months. As Gela and Camarina fell, Dionysius agreed a treaty defining the interests of Syracuse and Carthage in Sicily. Selinunte, Acragas, Himera, Gela and Camarina had to pay tribute to Carthage and were banned from fortifying their cities. Leontini, Messina and the Sicily were left free, and Dionysius kept hold of Syracuse. Dionysius of Syracuse dominated Sicily as far as Solonto, near Palermo. In 404 BC, he abandoned the Syracuse treaty with Carthage and invaded the Sicilian mainland as far as Enna. He destroyed Naxos and ejected the citizens of Catania from the city. He was very much a military leader who upgraded his army and his navy. Dionysius continued to attack Carthage territory in 398 BC. Eryches surrendered and Motia was destroyed after a long siege. A Carthaginian task force landed in Sicily in 396 BC, rolling across most of the island, destroying Messina and threatening Syracuse, before plague forced them to agree terms with Dionysius, pay him great wealth, and enabled them to flee Sicily. Dionysius the Younger succeeded his father, but was not the same leader. Dion of Syracuse, a distant relative, marched on Syracuse with 1,000 mercenaries in 377 BC. He was welcomed into Syracuse. At this time, Syracuse witnessed a number of assassinations, Iceta joined with Corinth, which led a small Greek army led by Timoleon, and arrived in 344 BC. Within 6 years they controlled the entire island and had killed the tyrants of the city-states. Timoleon liberated Syracuse and restored Sicily's freedom and Greek life against the oppression of Carthage. In 339 BC, Timoleon routed the Carthaginians near Segesta. Timoleon's death soon caused instability as rival factions jockeyed to gain an advantage. Wars between self-governing cities brought Agathocles to power in 317 BC. Agathocles allied with Morgantina to gain power via a number of regional revolts. Planned coup? Maybe. 4,000 aristocrats were killed and another 6,000 exiled. Agathocles became the undisputed commander. He promised to waive debts and gift portions of land, and there is some evidence that he kept his word at least some of the time. Sicily was invaded again in 311 BC. Syracuse was under siege in 310 BC. Agathocles managed to escape Syracuse with 14,000 men and 60 ships and immediately attacked the North African coast. He created his base in Tunis, posing a direct threat to Carthage. Hamilcar Barca quickly retreated from Sicily to defend his homeland, only to suffer another humiliating defeat. He was captured, tortured to death, and beheaded. Still unable to take Carthage, Agathocles returned to Sicily in 307 BC to put down a number of revolts. Carthage retained Heraclea Minoa, Termini, Solunto, Selinunte, and Segesta, but did agree to no further incursions. Mercenaries known as the Mamertines, as a bribe to leave Syracuse alone, they offered them the port of Messina. The Mamertines seized Messina, killed the men, enslaved the women and children, and began to raid the surrounding area. In 282 BC, Phintius, the tyrant of Agrigas, destroyed Gela and banished its people. Gela was now a Greek city. Syracuse defeated Agrigas, but this only triggered a further Carthaginian invasion. The first mistake of Pyrrhus of Epirus was to engage both Rome and Carthage. The term Pyrrhic victory refers to his victory against the Romans, but at a catastrophic cost. Having defeated the Romans at Taranto, Pyrrhus of Epirus arrived in Taormina in 278 BC on the invitation of the tyrant Tindarion. The army and navy of Pyrrhus dislodged both Carthaginian and Mamertine forces. Just like everybody else, he failed to completely control Sicily and was held at the Carthaginian stronghold of Lilybaeum, now Marsala. Sicilian Greeks became proficient in public speaking. They introduced a form of mime as a form of Greek poetry. Sicily generally prospered from Greek rule, and the Greek settlements enjoyed a distinct, separate Greek culture. What did the Greeks do for the Sicilians? Well, they brought democracy, history, philosophy, mathematics, science, poetry and drama. Plato did live for some time in Sicily as a friend and pupil of Socrates. His writings on philosophy including all of the known work of Socrates. Archimedes from Syracuse was famous for geometry, physics, mechanics, and as an inventor. He was famed for applying science to the creation of fabulous machines of war. The legend of Scylla and Charybdis from Homer's Odyssey was based on the Straits of Messina. The story is based on jealousy, love and revenge. Homer's cattle of Helios were apparently based on the island of Trinacria, the word for Sicily. You will find the symbol of Trinacria across the island. What are the key Greek Sicilian sites? Well, the Temple of Segesta, the Temple of Concordia at Agrigento, the Temple of Athena at Syracuse, the Temple of Hera at Selinunte.